All right, and we're live, Mark.
Good evening, everybody. This is Mark Smith and Mike DeCroce with our guest Rik Brown today on the Awaken Alive podcast. Real quick before we get started, introduce our guest. We want to make sure everybody checks out our member portal on the site, www.iamawakenalive.com, and check out the member stuff. Also, make sure you're keeping up with all of our great articles coming out, as well as the podcast, such as this one with Rik. And we do have a promotional code right now for the store where we've got our T-shirts on sale, and that is I am awake 20, and that is all lowercase. And that'll get you 20% off anything in the store. So it is my pleasure to introduce Rik Brown, Mr. Mace Man himself. I first came across Rik's work a few years back through My Mad Methods. He had written an article about training for old dudes, and it really resonated with me. My dad's always been in shape, so I've always dug the middle-aged guys exercising and taking care of themselves. And it was an unconventional take on that, which hit home even more for me as an unconventional trainer and coach. And then his real specialty is the Mace bell, and I'm going to have him talk about that at length because it's a real funky tool. Not a lot of people have seen it before, but it is powerfully effective and wonderful. So Rik, joining us all the way from California. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. I'm excited about this project and what you guys are accomplishing with it.
Thank you so much for the support. You've always been a fan
Thanks,
of
Rik.
stuff I've done, and I've been a fan of stuff you do. So I appreciate the continued support as I step to the next endeavor here. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, and then we'll get into some real nitty-gritty specific questions regarding the Mace, unconventional lifestyle, and that sort of thing. But just give us a little bit of a recap, a little bit of a who you are to our audience.
Okay, no problem. It's on YouTube if you type in Mr. Mace Man. I got a great video that says my story. But basically, I'm a lifelong trainer, a dismal failure as a bodybuilder. Although I loved it, and I was just a dismal failure. And I found out. And mind you, I grew up in Southern California where I live now, and I had access to Gold's Gym, World Gym, Vince's Gym. I worked out for a long time at Bill Pearl's gym, and I worked really hard, and I did get stronger, but I just didn't have the frame and all that looked good up on stage. So floundering for a while as a bodybuilder, I found out about strength and conditioning training. And I realized that regardless of your bone structure or anything else, I'm 6'5", so there's not too many 6'5" bodybuilders, successful at least, with the exception of Lou Ferrigno. And I found out that anybody could improve their strength and conditioning levels. And it didn't take 4-hour workouts, and I was hooked. I said, let me in on this. And I started to pursue that, and this was around the time when the kettlebells became popular, and I approached them as a typical bodybuilder would. Well, why should I only buy 3 different size kettlebells when what's going to happen when I get too strong for the biggest kettlebell? That's what a traditional bodybuilder would think. I didn't realize that there's a million ways you can make one size kettlebell work for you. But when I got a set of kettlebells, I immediately was hooked when I found out what they can do. I got a couple of books in VHSs. This was back in the VHS era. And I said, I absolutely have to take the training. And at the time, the only place you could take the training was in Minnesota. So I saved my money. I sold what bodybuilding equipment I had. I saved my money. I went to Minnesota, got RKC certified, which was the thing to do. And I thought that this was great. Everybody was going to fall in love with it like I did. And a lot of people did, but I don't think they necessarily wanted an older guy teaching it when they had access to so many young lions running around, or at least that's what my experience was. I don't think anybody had the passion for it that I did, but there were a lot of younger people doing it. So again, I always kept my ear to the ground, so to speak, and I was always trying to research new, or I should say not so new, methods of training, and I found out about clubs and fell in love with those. I didn't like so much the clique mentality and how they had to pay homage to the club gods. But then I found out about the Mace Bell. I happened to live in the same city as the main proponent, Jake Shannon of scientificwrestling.com. And I saw him driving down the street one day, and I pulled him over. I said, hey, I want to learn about the Mace Bell. I want to learn about it. And I don't know if he knew what to think, but I actually went with him to his house, and he showed me a Mace Bell. And I kind of picked it up pretty quickly, and he was surprised, and he asked me about my background. I told him I did clubs and kettlebells. And he had a Mace seminar certification, and I knew no matter what I had to take that. So I did. And I just fell in love with the Mace Bell and maces. I started finding who makes maces, and it's really difficult to find them back then. But now a few more people do. So long story short, what's that?
It's still kind of difficult.
It is.
It's not as readily accessible tool as even the kettlebell is.
No, it isn't. But remember, the kettlebell took a few years to hit mainstream. When I got into it, everything came out of Minnesota, and now you can go to Target and get a kettlebell. Hopefully it'll be like that with a Mace someday, but I don't know. I do know just about everybody who sells maces of quality, and I wrote a Mace training guidebook that I'll gladly send to anybody who asks for it. I mean, I'll either email it to them or send it to them on Facebook Messenger or however I can get it to them. Because there was nothing else written about maces, so I had to research and I had to write it. I just had to. And but I have listed in there all the places that sell quality maces. And so I fell in love with the Mace. And I think as a kettlebell trainer, I was just another old guy swinging kettlebells. I started picking up the Mace, and more people in gyms started asking about it. And that it just took off, and I'm grateful. You know, it took me 10 years of lifting heavy things and swinging them around my head before somebody asked me about them. But a few gyms really started asking about it, and I started giving seminars. Gave my first one about 2.5 years ago. Since then, I've been to 5 countries and done about 23 seminars. 2 weeks ago, I was really blessed to give a local one to a jiu-jitsu school, Leon Jiu-Jitsu, and the main guy there is blind, totally blind, and I was able to give him a seminar with the Mace, and hopefully big things will come from that. But I've been to Ireland, Poland, England, Norway, and had a lot of good success teaching a lot of people the Mace.
Yeah, you were just overseas earlier this summer, right?
Yes, I was. I did Ireland and Norway. It was my second time in Ireland and my first time in Norway, and I was really happy to do that.
I've been to Ireland. Norway is highly on my bucket list, as I have ancestry from Norway. So, and the photograph is just unbelievable. So I'd like to go there one day.
Yeah.
What was it about the Mace that you just fell in love with? You said, you know, when you met the guy from Scientific Wrestling, which is where my Mace Bell is from, and like you said, it was very hard to find anything about maces a while back, and I got my Mace 3 or 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I think, is when I got my Mace. At the time, it was one of the biggest purchases I had made for equipment. And it sounds silly, but you know, to spend $200 on a piece of equipment.
Literally the biggest piece of equipment, or dollar value?
No, like, in terms of price, what I'd spent. My business was really small at the time, and I was just starting off, and everything I have ever bought, I paid for it with cash. And you know, when you only have a few clients, there's not a lot of extra. So to buy something that was over $200 starting out was a big deal to me at the time. You know, now it would be like, oh, let me get an order of something. But you know, and so it made it special for me that was a price thing. But you're right, it was really hard to find, and I'm glad I got it. But you know, you said when you were meeting to learn about the Mace that you just sort of, what was it about it when you grabbed it that you just said, this is the tool for me to really specialize in? I know you're very good at other things as well, and you have I believe a whole whole DVD series on kettlebells. Is that right?
No, I have one instructional DVD. I really was very fortunate that one of my first clients, that's a funny story, one of my first clients, I didn't know what he did for a living, but he was the owner of Budo Videos. And he's a good client. He shows up all the time and everything. And he says, I really like these kettlebells, and I want my company to make them. I want to do an instructional DVD. And I immediately thought, okay, well, who are you going to get? This is Southern California. And I started thinking of all these names. And he said, well, we want to get you to do it. And I nearly fainted.
I'm sure.
So that DVD is still out there. BudoVideos.com. It's called Kettlebell Basics with Rik Brown. There is actually a little bit of Mace work on there on that video, and I think that piqued a lot of people's interest, and I started getting people to ask me about it. But in answer to your question as to what I liked about the Mace, when I was very, very young, I watched a travel television show on India, and there was a man that was lifting a gada, which is what the Mace came from, and just maybe a 10-second clip of this guy in a wrestling gym lifting a gada, and I was just enthralled by it. I knew that the thing was heavy, and I knew that he was controlling it, although it looked like it was out of control, and it fascinated me, and I filed it away in the back of my head. If I ever get an option to do something like that, I'm going to embrace it and learn it. And the first time when I met with Jake Shannon and I put my hands on a Mace, it was a 10-kilogram Mace, 22 pounds, at about 50 inches long. And I said, okay, I'm hooked. First time it went around my head, I'm hooked. I've got to learn everything about this. I fell in love with it. And the love has been good for me and hopefully for other people.
That's so crazy that it's so funny that as trainers and coaches and really people in general, but where we gain inspiration. I mean, it was a 10-second clip for you.
I wish I could find that 10-second clip again, but I was probably 15 years old at the time, and so that's a long time ago. But it was really something. I said, if I ever get my hands on something like that, I'm going to really learn to become a virtuoso with it, because I certainly didn't have talent to do anything else. And hey, it stayed in my head, and the opportunity finally came my way.
Yeah, I think my original attraction to the Mace was twofold. One, I was a wrestler in high school, and then I had read about these wrestlers in India and this tool they used, and I said, well, there's a pretty rich wrestling tradition there. And then I saw that it was a 5,000-year-old tool. And I said, something that old that's been around that long and never really disappeared, it's got to be good. Like, that makes sense to me. It's something. So when I was able to get one, I was same thing. I was like, this is awesome. Now, I certainly have not invested the time that you have. I would argue that not many people on the planet have. I'd say you're one of the formidable experts on the Mace, and that's why you have the moniker Mr. Mace Man. And
what can I say? When I first started to write articles, all the benefits to the upper back, the infoscience and scapular retractors going to your neck and how it was. And you know what? But I've been doing this long.
Hang on just a second. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty. Mike, can you figure that out? Sorry to pause the show.
Sorry, I was on mute. Everything seems fine. Maybe just give a second to catch up.
Let's try it again. You're clear now. Okay, Rick, go ahead and see if it works now.
Okay, can you get me okay now?
Perfectly clear. Yeah. So start back over. You were talking about articles on upper back health, shoulder health.
I was writing about how the benefits. I wrestled in high school too. I wish I'd have known about the Mace then, but I was writing about how it's excellent for your grip strength, your upper back strength, all this stuff. But after a while, I just got to feel that, I do it because I like it. I like it. I know it works, and I know it works for me, and I can make it work for you. And if you just do a little leap of faith and work with it for a few weeks, you'll feel the difference, a tremendous difference. It's not a complete training system. Okay? It's the icing on the cake. The kettlebell's the cake. I'm honest and forthright, and I tell everybody at my seminars, one of the first things I say is if you only have money to buy one piece of equipment, for goodness sakes, get yourself a kettlebell. You can do millions of things with it. With a Mace, you're a lot more limited, but what it does, nothing else can equal. And like it does, and I don't feel the need anymore to explain to people why it's good and why it does good. Hey, I do what I do. If you want to do Pilates is great. I just don't do it. If you want to do cardio kickboxing, that's great too. I just don't do it. I do the Mace and I do it as well as I can. And I'm going to do it until they shovel that last bit of dirt over me. Simple as that.
Maybe they'll use a gravedigger technique to shovel that dirt.
yeah. Anybody who gets my manual will learn about the gravedigger technique. It's not one of the main techniques. And can I say one thing?
You can say anything you want.
Okay, great. I say that I introduce the Mace at my seminars and things, and I tell people, I say this is a Mace. It is not a gada. It comes from the gada. It is different. There are structural differences, and there's differences in its use. Very similar to, and I was able to say this in England, in much the same way as a rugby football is different from an American football. You don't throw a spiral with a rugby football. You run with it. And with an American football, you can run with it or you can throw a spiral. There's different usages. They're very similar, much like a trumpet and a trombone are similar, but they're different. If you come from another solar system and you saw somebody doing a trumpet and somebody doing a trombone, you'd think they're both doing the same thing. But after you've been in the planet a couple of months, you'll realize, wait, there's a difference. And there is a difference between an American-made Mace and a gada. And and I'm sure, Mark, you know that in our pastime, in our activity, there's a lot of staunch traditionalists. And they say any deviation from what was done 500 years ago is and this is a quote, a bastardization. I've had people accuse me of bastardizing the gada, because I prefer a Mace with a ball at the end of the handle. And my answer to that is, it's true, the very first gada does not have a ball at the end of the handle, and the very first automobile did not have a seatbelt. But we learned that there was improvements.
It's a great analogy.
So I like a Mace with a ball at the end, or a ball, a lip, a flange, something so that you could be safe. And I teach people how to use that ball, that lip, or that flange as a seat belt, as a safety harness. They're not going to let go of it, and they're not going to hurt themselves or hurt anybody else.
Yeah, I have a hammer, just a regular steel hammer, like you would use a sledgehammer, and it doesn't flare out at the end like a wooden handled axe would or sledgehammer. And I'm swinging this thing one day, soaking wet with sweat, summertime here in North Carolina, and I'm beating a tire with it, and this thing just comes right out of my hand. And I am very safe with equipment. I, always make sure nobody's around me and whatnot. And this thing, as it hits the tire, my reflexes kick in, and I shift just enough to the left to watch this thing come basically up my lip, inches from me, and up my nose. And I think to myself, if that thing had hit me going as fast as it would have dug a trench in my face. It would have taken my bottom jaw, my teeth, my nose, my eye, everything out as fast as that handle was moving. It's definitely a hairy experience, but I think about what you're just saying, and with the safety is like, if it had a catch on it, a flange, which it probably should have, or if it had just gotten a little bit wider at the base, like a lot of axe handles do.
Exactly.
Where there's just that extra width, just the friction stops your hand.
It's a little safety feature that the Mace that you bought from Scientific Wrestling, it has a lip on the end. It acts the same as a ball. It's a very safe instrument to use. Very, very well made.
I will say this. when I first began Highland Games training, I did not have a Scottish hammer, which weighs the same as a mace. It's a different length, and it's similar. The handle is usually wooden, or a lot of people use PVC pipe. So I began using the mace as a Scottish hammer just to get the mechanics down. That flange is not useful when you release it. I will say that.
Right.
It hurts like a son of a bitch. But, I just did that for a few weeks until I waited to get an actual Scottish hammer, which was really cool. So another thing that you're kind of known for, at least I know you for, is you're an old dude. You talk to the middle-aged guys, and you help inspire these guys to get back either into shape or also to begin, but not begin where they were 20 years ago, which might have been a high school weight room doing bodybuilding type training. You actually encourage the unconventional lifestyle for a middle-aged person with many benefits. I'm going to let you handle the benefits because I know them, but I want you to speak because I know you've written several articles about it. So
Exactly.
if you want to address that, go for it.
Sure. I was born in 58, so that makes me 58. And I started really getting into this at an age in which I didn't think I was old, but I've come to find out that it is old. I was in my mid-40s, and again, coming from a dismal failure as a bodybuilder, I started to do this, and I realized, wow, first of all, I have no preconceived or no prior numbers to compete with. So whatever I do is an all-time best. Right here, I'm 46 years old, first time I swing a mace, and it's an all-time best, okay? I don't have to say, well, gee, when I was 20, I did so much more. So right off the bat, when I have clients that are older, they're hitting PRs the first month, okay? That's a plus. And they don't have to look back and say, as most of us do, I wish I would have had this in my 20s. Well, of course we do, but we can't go back. So all you can do is move and go forward and make your forward really good. And I tell people, and this is so important to know, even if you are a bodybuilder or something, and I'm good friends with a 50-plus-year-old bodybuilder, Sean Powers, who I'm jealous as can be of him because he's 50-plus and he looks great. I mean,
He's
amazingly great.
My paths and his have crossed a few times here in the last
He talks the talk and he walks the walk. But
absolutely.
Yeah, really. But I tell people that whatever you're doing, first of all, you're getting off the couch. Okay, so that puts you in the 1/10 of 1% with everybody else your age group. But everybody you went to high school with, every 6 months, 10 to 20 of them fall off the map completely, because if you've got children that have already graduated from high school, or with me, grandchildren that have, you're so rare in the group, and you're in that rare group when all your peers are starting to tell you what they used to do, and you tell them what you are doing this week, and they'll try to impress you with what they used to do. You tell them you swing a 50-pound mace. That 50 pounds doesn't sound that heavy to somebody who in his youth bench pressed 400 pounds, but 50 pounds is heavy, trust me, it is, okay? And not just that, it wasn't your youth, you're doing it right now. I was at, a convention at the Los Angeles Convention Center. They had the Fitness Expo, and one of the guys had a 106-pound kettlebell out there in front of his booth, and scores of people went up there trying to lift it, and I knew they couldn't. A kettlebell guy could do it, but there weren't too many of them. Most of them were the bodybuilding crowd. And I went up there, and I think I snatched it or I cleaned and jerked it. I didn't press it. I got really long arms, and pressing it would take a lot for me to press it. But anyway, I lifted it, and the guy says, "Wow, you lifted it. That was fabulous." I said, "Well," he goes, "Are you proud of yourself?" I said, "Well, yeah, I got my AARP card today, so I'm happier about that." But it actually did happen that way. But I can tell you, I mean, I'm not trying to brag or anything, because in this world that I travel, I do know a lot of advanced age men who put me to shame, and I use them as inspiration. Again, one of them is Sean Powers. He's got a physique like like a 20-year-old, and he's over 50, and it's just
Rick,
not fair. It really isn't fair.
I never looked that good as even in
Yeah.
my youth when I was, every supplement, that diet was tight, multiple splits and all that stuff. I never looked like Sean Powers. That dude is amazing.
Yeah, I'd need a lot of chemical help to get like Sean.
Yeah, I would have needed
Sean
it.
carries himself with a quiet. He's just as confident and quiet, and he's not a hey look at me type of guy. But when you see him, he's phenomenal.
I like his nutrition post. I mean, he really lays it out there. How important the nutritional aspect is if you're gonna look that way. And it's cool because the dude used to be a fat guy.
Absolutely.
And now look at him. You gotta love a success story like that.
He used to be a fat guy. He had a 48-inch waist, and now it's half that, and his chest is at least 48. I mean, the guy's he's a true inverted pyramid.
So did he pick up training as an old in his later years, or is he always? You guys say he's been out of shape.
No, he was
he was
a guy in his middle age. He was 42? Is that right, Rick, when he started?
I think about then. The numbers I remember was that he had a 48-inch waist. That's what I remember.
No, it's before and after pictures crazy. But you know what? We'll probably get Sean on the show. I know him, and I'll probably get him on the show here at some point because I think that would be cool to have him. Have him tell his story.
Definitely have the video working when you have Sean on there. Definitely.
Oh yeah, get him to stand up and do double crab for us so we can see it. But I think that we are drawn so much to success stories, and it. I want to touch on a couple of points you made when you were talking about the middle-aged crowd. I think we're drawn to success stories because a lot of times it's one of two things. We either use it as inspiration, like, it can be done, or we look at it as like, the other side of that is somebody looks at it as, I can never do that. They take it as defeat. And you can have one or two options. You said that it is the sad but honest truth, the hard truth of the age bracket 45 and up. Every 6 months, somebody's dropping dead. My dad's 61, and he knows plenty of people that have already dropped dead from his high school class, which is absolutely depressing. 2 weeks ago, we had William King on the show, and William King was talking about longevity hotspots. And, these places in the world where people live to be 90 and 100, and they don't have the illnesses. They're not dropping dead of heart attacks and diabetes like they are here in the United States. And it was just a really wonderful juxtaposition to see that a healthy lifestyle does exist. Chronic sickness and illness is not a universal thing just because of age. We kind of accept it here in the United States, like, you're getting old, you're going to start getting sick, things are going to start falling apart. You can do something about it. And, you look at guys like you, guys like my dad, guys like Sean Powers, that taken charge and done something about it. Some of them have been lifelongers. Some of them have said, enough's enough, and I'm going to make a change. But you're right. This age group is so important that they realize, and even my age group, and I'll talk about that in a second, but that they realize it's not too late to start, and that you can make change. And these unconventional methods are in a lot of ways a little easier on the joints. They promote joint health and better movement, better mobility, while adding a lot of strength that's functional and carries over to day-to-day use. And all of a sudden, there's this like revitalization of your youth. So
exactly. And one thing I want to bring out, it's one thing to begin a practice. You're in your late middle age, and you notice that your health is deteriorated, and you begin some type of practice like some nutritional therapy or some type of mild exercise that kind of makes your blood pressure go down and your fat levels go down and things like that. And that's great if you do that. If somebody does that, I applaud them. But let me tell you, if you're doing the unconventional stuff that we do, you're going to accomplish those things. but you're also going to do something that the Pilates crowd, and I'm not knocking Pilates, but I'm just using them because it's so different from what we do. With the unconventional methods, you're developing a physical vibrancy in that you can change a truck tire if you're stuck on the freeway and you're 60 years old. Okay,
That's right.
You could buy an air condition. You could buy an air conditioner for your second-story apartment, and you don't have to wait for help to carry it upstairs. Okay, if you have a sick wife, you can carry her down the stairs. You don't have to call an ambulance. I want to be vibrant. I don't just want to hang out. I want to be vibrant. I want to be able to drive into an underground. I live in Southern California, right, not too far from South Central Los Angeles. I want to be able to park into an underground parking lot, walk from my car alone, and not be afraid.
Right.
And I'm able to do that.
And part of that is you have developed a confidence in your own strength and your own ability, and also physical presence. You know, people. You're not. If you don't look like a victim, chances are you're not going to be a victim. If you look strong, like you're going to put up a fight, it's the animal kingdom. They're not going to mess with the strongest one in the herd.
Yeah,
if I'm a victim to anything, it's going to be a victim to an ass-kicking workout. And after it's kicked my ass, I feel good enough that I can handle anything else that comes my way.
That's right. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and it's a lot of fun training this way. I think one of the things Chip Conrad was saying is, you're learning skills. You're learning, and you're doing something that's fun. Where other workouts can get boring, and that might be just what drives people away from it. Where when you're doing a lot of this stuff, you look forward to going to the gym and challenging yourself, and it just there's an extra element to keep you going.
Absolutely. Yeah, and speaking of
you attributes, and I like to tell people that don't just ask from your exercise development of muscle or burning of fat. Try to develop attributes, and some of the things that you do with maces and clubs is you project them, you throw them from hand to hand, and you develop a type of grip strength that's really good for what we call tight, loose, tight, where you can grip something tight and then loosen up on your grip, still have control, and then immediately go into a super tight grip, which is excellent for grapplers or grandfathers who have grandkids.
Yeah, I did jiu-jitsu for a number of years. I already mentioned wrestling, but I certainly didn't cling to people the whole time with the death grip. I had to learn when to turn it on and when was I just holding for enough control to maintain my position. But that tight loose tight is directly transferable from Mace to grappler. But speaking about age groups and stuff, it's getting younger. I mean, this out of shape, this helplessness, it's not people in their 50s anymore. It's people in their 30s. I'm 31, and I see my friends that I graduated high school and college with, and I'll go to a wedding, and it's. I mean, I'm like, man, what happened? We ain't been out of college for 10 years, and you look like crap. A funny story. This weekend, I helped a friend move. It was about a 5-hour move, and he actually had some of his other friends. Now, this is a very, probably one of my longest-standing training partners. He's a great guy. He's got a history in powerlifting, so he's a very stout guy. But he had a back surgery last year, so. Some of the bigger stuff, I'm still having to help him with and all that stuff. He's got a great frame on him and a lot of natural strength, but it's still just a little bit touch and go on where the back surgery happened. But he had some friends out, and again, all these guys are somewhere around my age, a couple years older, at best, mid-30s. And we're joking. I'm on the back of the truck, and two of the guys yell out. They say, I won't use my friend's name, but they say, "Hey, buddy, we need some help with this washer and dryer." And I look at him and I said, "Well, which one you want to get?" And the guy started laughing, and I walked in there and using leverage, I put the washer on right across my waist, and my right hand went across and grabbed the back of it, and I leaned it, and I sort of waddled it out. Off the ground, resting on my hips out there, and these guys are kind of looking around. And so then me and another person put it actually on the truck, And then I turn around, and two guys had managed to slowly but surely get the dryer out. Now, everybody knows a dryer, it don't weigh a thing. They're awkward. They're big, and it's a big cube, but they don't weigh that much. And so I look back, and I shrug my shoulders, I roll my eyes, and I go, fucking, I'll get it. And so I picked this whole dryer up and put it on the truck. And, it goes back to what you said. Like, it's not to toot my horn. It's just you should be able to move furniture, in your 30s, 40s, 50s. You should be a 60-year-old guy, be able to change a truck tire if your car breaks down. It's the confidence and the strength that I get, and I feel people get from unconventional training, gives you the power to be self-reliant in life. Because there's a lot of invariables in life, and you're able to respond to those, whether it be a strength or a movement task. If you've got to be bent over for a while, or if you've got to pick something heavy up and move it. And we talked about that last week on the show with Chip Conrad, too, is like being self-sufficient and using your training to make you more self-sufficient. And like you said, you don't want to be a victim in any situation, whether it be getting attacked or, hey, I'm helpless because I can't do this job myself because I'm not strong enough.
Yeah, you don't want to have to call Mark Smith every time you need to move a washer.
or anything. I get called every time somebody has to move, which is fine with me. I actually like it. It's like a big puzzle. It's you get to lift heavy stuff, and then you get to use your brain and organize it and pack a truck like a giant game of Tetris.
Yeah, that's true. But you'll find out who your real friends are when it's your turn to move, believe me.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, you'll find out.
All of a sudden, everybody's busy.
But just to be able to do it, to be able to say, I'm here, I'll help you.
And I'll help to the bitter end, Rick. I'm there for a 10-hour day or a 12-hour day or a 2-hour day. It doesn't matter because the endurance is there.
The endurance is there. And you know how to lift.
Yeah.
And it's fun to make your friends look like pussies and rub their nose in it when you're done.
Yeah, rub their nose in it. It's like, what's wrong with you guys? Actually, we were walking past some ladies moving a piece of furniture, and one guy had to set it down, and I asked the ladies, can you ladies come help us with this because my friend left his balls at the house.
Yeah, we all know ones like that. Like, I really like your shirt. Does it come in a man's size?
Mm-hmm.
That's funny. Yep. Yeah, it's fun to joke and jeer. I mean, it's I think people are too sensitive, but you know what? That's joking around with guys. It's always been kind of fun.
Yeah, people. Sometimes you do an incredible workout. Incidentally, when I was in my young days, I was embarrassed to work out in front of people, or especially like in a park or something like that, because it was like, oh, who do you think you are? What do you think you're doing? There's so many people who could do it better than you. Well, the situation's reversed now. There's so few that can do it with white hair, or bald, like I'm rapidly becoming. That people say things like what my goodness, what do you drink? And I love to say Geritol, or something like that.
Well, it's again, I think it's a validation, maybe a bit of an ego stroke, but you're right. Like now you're the outlier. And I remember when I was a tiny, scrawny dude growing up. I mean, I was wiry. I graduated high school only 125 pounds, and I was 5'9". I mean, it's just a beanpole. Going to the gym was so intimidating for me because there'd be these big dudes. They're not big now, but I mean, like back then, they were guys 160 to 200 pounds were huge compared to me. And it was just, I was like, I had such a hard time even going to the gym. I was like, oh, I'm weak. Like, I've got the smallest shirt in the possible world, and it's still just like falling off of me because I look like two pieces of yarn, and those are my arms dangling out of these sleeves. And yeah, it was really intimidating. At some point, skinny, tiny old me in high school, I just got over it, and I was like, you know what? I just want to get stronger than I am right now, and maybe one day I'll be able to lift with the big boys. And of course, that day has come and gone, and I certainly can hang with the best of them now. But yeah, I think that there's there's a lot of merit to what you said. You gotta do it. Don't worry about other people looking at you or feeling silly or feeling like you're not good enough. We all start somewhere. There's always going to be somebody better than us, and we can always get better ourselves. And at the end of the day, even doing a little bit is better than doing nothing.
You have to remember when you've been doing this for a couple of decades, even your workout that you're embarrassed of, even the workout that you don't even want to write on your notebook, that you don't want to tell your buddies about, that workout would kill the average man, would actually put him in the hospital. Okay, we're embarrassed because we worked out for 35 minutes and we were dead tired and we had a few calluses on our hands that ripped open and now we're all upset. But the average guy, if he does anything, pushing a broom long enough to give him calluses, he's going to tell everybody at work the next day about it.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I had my post about this weekend was similar to that. I basically had a super, super demanding workout Friday, helped a guy move on Saturday for 5 hours, and then took down a tree and took out a stump by hand on Sunday morning for a friend. And, any one of those things might have killed half the people I know on Facebook.
Yeah, half the warriors that want to know how much you bench press,
We have an article about that, controversial as it may be. It's just funny. It's a silly question. I've always thought, it doesn't matter if you can't, move a couch.
Yeah, I think I wrote that in that was my pet peeve in My Mad Methods once, was the 400-pound bench presser that gets hurt helping you move a couch. What good is it? And then we've all seen the meme of the guy getting choked out, and it's like the moment you realize your max bench press doesn't help you. When you've been doing this a few years, what's that?
I said some of those jiu-jitsu guys are like monkeys. I remember even being good at jiu-jitsu, back when I was training a lot. I rolled with this little tiny Brazilian dude, and this was by the time I put on some weight, was big and strong. I had quite a bit of weight on this guy, and I just was like, he balled me up, turned me around, one choke after another. Like I said, I was pretty good at the time. I was definitely better than the average guy in the gym. And he was only one belt higher than me, but it was insane, like how seamless his technique was. And this is one of those things like, well, it doesn't matter how much stronger I am than this guy. I cannot do a thing.
Yeah, Hoist Gracie was that way. Everybody thought he was going to get his ass kicked, and he just manhandled all those dudes.
He changed the game. He
Yeah.
changed everything.
He proved it doesn't matter.
He certainly did. But fortunately, even the Brazilians now are realizing that conditioning, if nothing else, conditioning is a great help, and weakness helps nothing. Mm-hmm. Strength fixes a lot of things.
I like that quote, Rick. I've never actually heard it said that way. Weakness helps nothing.
I wish I could take credit for it, but somebody else, I think a college coach came up with it,
Are they still alive?
A college football coach, I think a college football coach said that weakness helps nothing. What does weakness help?
Yeah, it's a great perspective, though. Think about it.
Remember there was a movie, Bruce Lee's son was in a movie once with Dolph Lundgren, and I guess they sparred, and Dolph Lundgren never landed a good shot on him, and Bruce Lee's son said to him, Brandon Lee, he said, all your upper body strength slows you down. And my reply to that would have been, what does your weakness improve?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, if you've got nothing to do all day but learn a skill of how to beat somebody up, you're going to be proficient at it. But most of us have a 9-to-5 job, and we don't have all day even to do our unconventional training. And that's another advantage, is that it doesn't take an hour-long workout. If you can do what I do for an hour, there's nothing I can teach you. The first few times I would put my kettlebells and my maces and my clubs outside in the park. I remember my dear wife would say, "Honey, someone's gonna run off with those." I said, "If they can run off with them, I'm not gonna chase them."
I said
That's
that
for
about my
sure.
studio because I leave it unlocked, and I say I dare anybody to take this equipment.
Yeah, take
You know,
it, take it.
good luck getting 100 yards with these bells, unless you've been throwing farmers walks for distances all the time. Anyway,
Yeah.
Rick, that's about our time for the day.
Okay. I will say. Let me
You have
say one
any
thing.
points?
It's a great feeling in life to be 58 years old and feeling like a kid. I'm training for a Mace competition next month in Vegas, September 17th, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm not going to say that I'm going to win. I hope I do, but I know one thing. I'm going to look good doing it. I'm going to whatever place I come in, and I will definitely be the oldest guy up there.
That's awesome. We'll look forward to following you in the competition and posting about it afterwards. So that would be, guys. Thanks for listening. We had Rik Brown today talking about all things from old man strength, the history and the efficiency of the Mace Bell. What a cool tool that is. Got to learn a lot about that. And Rick, before we let you go, where can people find all your stuff? I know you've got several resources. You've also got maybe a website, Facebook page, but shoot us with all that stuff, contact information. Go ahead and say it, and then we'll also have it in writing for you when we
Okay,
put it up.
the best way to get a hold of me right now, as my new website's being developed, the best way is through Facebook under my name. I spell my name R-I-K Brown. If you spell it traditionally R-I-C-K Brown, you get some rapper in England, so it's not me. So I'm R-I-K Brown on Facebook. I'm R-I-K Brown on YouTube, and on Instagram, I'm at Mr. Maceman.
Perfect. Rick, thanks again so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. It's a
And
pleasure.
It's been a pleasure for me too.
we will catch you offline here.
Great.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Good night.